Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCullum, and today we're going to talk about the full conceal, aka the Foldy-Glock. Now, we're going to discuss the history here. I'm going to show you how this actually works, and then I'm actually going to take this to a backup gun match and try it out on 4 stages. So, let's dig in. The story here begins with the designer, a guy named Mike Full, hence the name of the company, Full Conceal, who was thinking about ways to carry a pistol. And had this, his conception was carrying a pistol requires a fair bit of infrastructure. It's not particularly convenient or comfortable all the time, and perhaps that's the reason that people aren't carrying when they might otherwise be interested in doing it. Let's say, you're at home, you're not carrying a pistol around on a regular basis, but you're going to run out to run some errands or something. If you could just drop a pistol in your pocket, you might carry it with you for self-defense. In a situation where if you have to put on a holster or change your method of clothing, if you're carrying outside the waistband, you need some concealing garments to work with it. You need pants that have a proper belt. Carrying inside the waistband can be a little bit uncomfortable, especially in cars. And Mike Full's thought was this causes people who would otherwise carry to not carry. So his plan was to try and come up with something that would offer concealment as well as convenience, a level of significant safety. One of the problems with just dropping a gun in a pocket is the trigger is not covered by anything, and it leaves open the potential for unintended firing. That can be really bad. So it has to be a solution that is safe if you're going to be carrying it without a holster, and something that would still be readily accessible and deployable, and ideally offer a significant amount of firepower, something more than the super deep concealment, little tiny micro pistols, which are legitimate guns, but they can be very difficult to shoot. I think one of his specific motivations was the Aurora theater shooting, and looking at that situation from a tactical perspective and thinking, okay, if I'm in a large, dark room with a whole lot of innocent bystanders around and someone starts shooting and you need to stop them, that's a difficult shot. If you're armed with a little dinky, Keltec P32 or a Ruger LCP or something, that's a difficult prospect. It'd be much easier if you had, say, a full-size Glock 19. But how are you going to carry a full-size Glock 19 meeting all of these other criteria? Now, in 2016, he developed his M1 and M2 designs. And these are essentially ways to cut down the grip of a Glock and then carry the magazine parallel to the barrel so that you can drop the whole thing into a cargo pocket or a regular pocket. And instead of having the printed profile of a gun sticking out in your pocket, now it just looks like a brick, something like a large cell phone, which people don't really look at twice or think much about. In order to have the safety aspects, these early designs did things like cover the trigger guard with a magazine carrying thing. The video is not about those two. You can see what they looked like, but it was the M3 design that really was the folding Glock that eventually came to market. So this was presented at SHOT Show 2017 in prototype form, and the idea was we're going to cut the grip completely off of a standard Glock, rebuild the trigger guard as a multi-part metal folding hinge mechanism so that you can put a full-size magazine in a Glock 19, fold the grip up underneath the barrel. You have a rectangular shaped thing that can be just dropped into a pocket. The trigger is protected by the folding mechanism, so you don't have to worry about a potential trigger pull while the gun's in a pocket, and yet it remains quickly deployable, and you end up with a full-size Glock 19 with a full-size or even slightly extended magazine. So this was available. This was developed in 2 versions, the M3S, which was single stack, which was essentially a Glock 43, and the M3D, which was double stack, essentially a Glock 19. And what I have here is the Glock 19 version, the M3D. So let me show you how it works, because it's mechanically really cool. So here it is in the folded form, and you can see that the trigger is, well, there really kind of is no trigger. The trigger doesn't show up until you start unfolding the gun, and it's right there. So the original concept is that this could be carried with a round in the chamber and it would be totally safe because essentially you have all of the original Glock safeties. This is, all of this is original Glock components I mean, it was a Glock, it's serialized as the original Glock. So you've got all of the Glock safeties. The trigger is hidden inside the mechanism here. The trigger cannot be physically pulled, so carry it with around in the chamber. And then when you want to deploy it, all you have to do is pull the grip down and snap it in place. There's a little hook right back here, right there, that locks into that pin. The magazine just sort of deals with itself. You don't have to do anything to it. It seats itself right there, and the gun's good to go. If you're carrying it with a round in the chamber, you just can start shooting at this point. In order to fold it, all you do is press in on the back of this lever to unhook it from the frame. This folds down, so you've got your two legs of the trigger guard that fold up right there. You can see the trigger is pulled forward out of engagement with anything and very substantially protected there. You can then depress the magazine catch and actually push the magazine up in the grip to stow it so that it's no longer than the muzzle. This is a standard Glock 17 mag, but you can actually do this with one of the Magpul 21 round extended magazines, and it will sit flush on the bottom of the grip here on a Glock 19 sized gun, and the top of the magazine will come right up to here. So you can fit a 21 round mag in a Glock 19, and it is available and ready to use that quickly. So the original Glock trigger has been replaced by this flat metal lever. This is not actually the trigger. The trigger is this guy in the back, right there. But if I don't actually pull this lever, I can't depress that. So this takes the place of the Glock trigger safety. This is mechanically actually a really well executed design. With that, I can fire it and then reset when it cycles. It's not the most comfortable trigger. It is flat and sort of short, and you know, I don't know that I'd want to go do a 500 round range session with this thing, but that's not its purpose. Its purpose is as a defensive pistol, where that's just fine. And the trigger press on this is based on the Glock internals, so it's essentially the same trigger press as a regular Glock 19. The full Conceal guns, both the Glock 43 and the Glock 19 models, were available and shipping in early 2018, just after SHOT Show 2018. And mechanically, they were really good. You look at that hinge system and you think, wow, this is definitely not going to work. Like, something's going to be problematic with this. But no, a lot of credit to Full Conceal. They pulled off the mechanical side of this really well. The guns were reliable, they were effective. From a technical perspective, they were very good. The problem is, a technically very good gun isn't enough to be commercially successful. And a little bit of a quick spoiler here, in October of 2020, a little over 2 years after the guns were first available on the market, the company declared bankruptcy, and in June of 2021, all of their assets were sold at public auction to help cover the company's debts. So the company lasted not quite, well, about 2.5 years before going under. Why? Well, the problem is it wasn't a gun that you could convince people to buy and use. So fundamentally, the problem here is the target market was sort of the casual concealed carry person, the person who's not willing to put in like the lifestyle change elements to change their clothing to suitably work with concealed carry, to have holsters, to spend time practicing with a pistol that they can conceal well. Instead, it's intended for a guy who's like, well, I'm going to the grocery store, I don't want to bother with a belt, we'll just boop, grab that, throw it in a cargo pocket. But it was a $1,000 gun in 2018. It was expensive, like it was really expensive. And there was a fundamental mismatch there where the target market was essentially priced out or interested out. The target market were the sort of people who would pay $300 for a little micro polymer 32 that they could just the same stick in a pocket, and they were probably a bit less interested in the safety elements of it. Just like, nah, we'll carry it with the chamber empty, or it's got a heavy trigger, or I didn't even think about that, I just put the gun in my pocket. So there are problems with revenue, with actually selling the guns there because of the mismatch between the price and the consumer base. There are also problems involved in production cost of the guns, which is really what led it to be such an expensive gun. The problem is these are built from Glocks, which means Full Conceal has to first, in order to sell a gun, the first thing they have to do is buy a Glock, which means they are paying all of the markup and profit margins on two guns. They have to have a profit margin on their M3D, but the components that go into it also include the profit margin and markups on the Glock 19 that it's built on. So it was a really expensive production gun to make. Now, they tried to fix some of those issues in 2019 and 2020 by doing things like developing their own milled aluminum frames, developing their own slides. They had what was it, at SHOT Show 2020, they introduced a prototype of the M3, what they call the M3D6, or S6. The 6 was intended to denote that this would be a sub $600 pistol, because it was using a slide that they made themselves. And yeah, making it themselves as a Glock clone was significantly cheaper than buying it from Glock. But all of that development, all of those attempts were basically too little, too late. It's unclear to me if any of those like self-produced guns were actually sold. They were initially supposed to be released like basically at SHOT Show or immediately after SHOT Show 2020. That got pushed back to April, in part because of COVID. And then it's unclear if they ever actually shipped any units before declaring bankruptcy in October. So that's the saga of the Full Conceal. I remember seeing these at SHOT Show, and I thought it was a really cool system, but even at the time I was pretty dubious about the practicality and the marketability of this product. So I did pick this one up after they went bankrupt, kind of figuring that a review video I do isn't going to end up being really flattering to the company. It's awesome that it's mechanically as good as it is, but it's really not something that I would recommend for carry. If you're going to carry a gun, you should do so with the full forethought and responsibility of properly carrying a gun, instead of the offhanded nature, I think, of just dropping a folding Glock into a cargo pants pocket. Anyway, let's check out how it actually shoots with all that being said. So we will head off to stage one of our backup gun match.
All right, shooter ready?
Yep.
Shooter is ready. Stand by. Ooh, very good. Unload and show clear. All right, 13.
Oh, 13.99, which for bug means 13.
Yes, the benefit of that 0.99. So
You win by 1 second. We're all going to beat you up.
Ah,
Whoa. Down one. Down two.
down 3.
So down 3 total.
Not bad. 46 points.
Very good.
I was actually planning to shoot through and then ended up not, because didn't quite meet the rules where you had to shoot them like Alvin York, nearest to closest. Using shoot-throughs doesn't quite do that, so.
You also have a full-size magazine, then you don't really need.
Yes, for once at a bug match, I have all the ammunition I need, and so I'll go ahead and use it.
Ready. Stand by. Oh, unload and show clear. Very good. Slide, hammer, folded, I guess.
Ready.
Shooter is ready. Stand by. Very good. Unload and show clear. Okay. Camera.
Well, I was shooting low on all of the paper, so that's down a bunch. That's down one. Yeah.
That one's down one.
So I was shooting low. Definitely, I'm sure it's the sights. The sights are probably low on this. It's definitely not me.
Whatever the secret
Make it
might
sort of ready and then half unready.
Make ready is the command.
Do whatever this thing is with that weird gun.
Is the shooter ready?
Ready?
Shooter is ready. Stand by. Very good. Unload and show clear.
All right, so that was a lot of fun. This is one of the most modern pistols I've had the pleasure of taking to a backup gun match in a while. And this actually fits the backup match gun box as a backup gun, despite having a full-size magazine in it, because it does fold. So there's actually a lot of legitimacy to bringing this gun to this match. Now, I was running this the whole time with the chamber empty, so click it, rack it, and that's because of range safety rules. In theory, this would be perfectly safe to carry with a round chambered, because when you fold the gun, that trigger is disengaged and protected, but there's no way that that's going to pass the, the range safety guys here. So ultimately the question is, was this a viable alternative for a concealed carry gun? And the market said the answer was no, which is why Full Conceal is no longer in business. For a gun, like, the benefit here is it's sort of a gun that's not really gun shaped if it's printing. It certainly does drop very nicely into a cargo pocket, which I think is mostly what they had in mind. But are there better options out there? Yeah, there are absolutely better options. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. This is certainly a fun one, neat piece to have in the collection. Thanks for watching.